Now, the world can be a very unpredictable place, as we just saw firsthand with massive power blackouts in Portugal and Spain this past week. But instead of being afraid and not letting your heart be troubled, it's a perfect opportunity to get prepared, because this could happen at any moment for any number of emergency scenarios. And so I want to share with you the pieces of gear and equipment that I would trust in just such a scenario to make that process of getting from point A to point B in a get home bag as survivable as possible. Regardless if you've never thought of building out a get home bag before, I hope that this is a good starting point for you, giving you some good ideas and tips. And if you already have a get home bag or system, I hope that this will give you some ideas that you can maybe tweak and fine tune the system that you've already created. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Aaron. This is Gideonstactical. Let's dive into this bag and get prepared. Now, there are two items that no one seems to talk about that you should have on your person at all times in an emergency scenario, regardless if you have a get-home bag or not, and they should be riding in your wallet, and you should be trusting a wallet or purse and not your smartphone for your ID and credit card numbers. What happens if the power's down? They can't scan or read that stuff. You need physical copies, in my personal opinion, as we just saw. Now, everyone should have $100 or your equivalent for your country currency, hard currency in different denominations, some ones, some fives, tens, 20s, so that if you need to purchase food, supplies, or possibly even transportation, you have a means that is not attached to a credit card and power. We saw that happen with long lines at ATMs because stores were open, but they couldn't run credit card numbers, and so people were trying to get cash so that they could buy supplies or get from point A to point B. So if you have $100 cash on you, you are already ahead of the game. Separate from that would be a card with several emergency phone numbers. Again, what happens if your phone dies, gets damaged, or for whatever reason can't make a call out, but you can get a landline, or if someone else has a phone that you can call. And some numbers to consider would be 2 separate emergency contacts. In my case, it's my wife and my mom. Your bank number, so that if you need to cancel a card, or if you needed to get a PIN number or communicate, you could potentially reach out to your bank. And you should also have your doctor's phone number along with your embassy of your home country. In my case, the US Embassy phone number, so that, imagine I'm in Spain and that occurs, but maybe I can get a call out. A lot of government buildings have backup generators. They may be able to receive calls, and maybe I could figure out what's going on or get help or go to a location for American citizens and do that type of thing. So those are some emergency numbers and contacts that you should consider having on your person that just no one ever talks about. Now, as we get into the bag, you can go with a duffel bag or backpack, anyone that seems to be just kind of laying around, as long as you feel like it's durable and reliable, that you could walk a long distance and carry your gear and supplies. It's not going to rip out or tear or have an issue. Now, when we talk about survival in emergency situations, there are 3 things to consider: food, water, shelter. So how do we do that and carry that easily and quickly? Well, for food, get yourself a bunch of high protein, high calorie power bars, energy bars, maybe some jerky, peanuts, things like that that are easily transportable, that you don't have to cook and you can eat on the run. Along with electrolytes. We saw people walking down train tracks having to walk home. What if it's 100 degrees and you live in Phoenix, Arizona? Having some electrolytes, not a bad idea, cheap and lightweight. Now, along with that, water. Always good to have a water bottle of some kind, even just a single use, throw 1 or 2 of them in there. That will help significantly with your hydration issues. Now, along with that, I always like having a water purifier or filter so that I can process dirty water. My preference are GRAYL water bottles because they can process no matter what type of dirty water there may be. I can scoop up and depress, and now I have a water bottle to drink straight out of, or I can fill up other people's bottles versus, straws and things like that can kind of get cumbersome. And if the power is out, most water is attached to pumps, and so you're going to have to scoop maybe out of like the back reservoir of a toilet, standing water in a pool, like whatever it may be. Don't drink chlorine water, but you get what I'm saying. That pond, that you have to press and drink out of. So having some form of water purification would be ideal. Along with that, something that nobody really seems to talk about, but is super inexpensive and can give you access to a bunch of cleaner water, is a water key. These things are a few bucks, and most outbuildings will have an exterior spigot that requires a key like this. And oftentimes, even if the power is out, there may be enough built up pressure in the system that you may be able to get several gallons of water out of that spigot before the pressure depletes itself. So having a little water key like this, essential piece of gear. Now finally, shelter. The idea is that we're trying to get home. This is a get home bag. So you want shelter that is portable, that you can walk with potentially. So having things like a baseball cap, just to give yourself some shade, low vis stuff, gray man, always ideal, a beanie, a little bandana of some kind, and then some sort of outer shell is a really good idea to have, regardless of the time of year. It could be hot, it could be cold when a certain emergency situation occurs, and so that will have your bases covered along with a pair of gloves. This will protect your hands and help you be able to handle maybe different scenarios that you may not think about. Along with that, very simple, cheap, and inexpensive are those emergency space blankets. These are waterproof, these are portable, you can definitely walk with them, and will retain heat. Great little option. If you wanted to kick it up to 11, you can always go with an emergency bivvy. This is like a little compact sleeping bag that is water resistant. I could hunker down underneath a shrub, a bush, underneath an overpass, and be able to stay warm enough to spend the night and out of the elements if necessary. So now that those items are covered, how about communication? In the 21st century, if your phone isn't working, it's kind of scary and you feel naked. So what are other alternatives? Well, everyone should have old school pen and paper. Ideally, write in the rain. I have tested those and they are awesome. But this allows you to write notes. Say you get home, but your children, your spouse are not there, but you need to move on. You need to go to grandma's house. You need to check on an elderly neighbor. You can just write a quick note and say, hey, I went over to Janice's house to check on her, be back in 10. Hey, we went to the hospital because so-and-so is hurt, stay in place. Whatever. You can leave notes for each other in locations and be able to keep some level of communication going. Along with that, you should have some form of ability to gather knowledge of what's happening in the outside world. An emergency radio, just like this. This is one I found on Amazon, tested it, works great. It's Sky, eSky or something. But this is going to be able to pick up NOAA weather bands and emergency bands so that even if the power is down, oftentimes the government is able to share at least what's going on. Knowledge is half the battle. Knowing is half the battle. Is that what G.I. Joe said? I forget. Anyway, being able to have some idea will give you peace of mind, be able to calm down. You're like, oh, the power's going to be on in 12 hours. Oh, it's a hurricane. Oh, like my state is down, but the rest of the country is still functional. Okay, you have some ability to know what is happening. This has, like a solar panel, hand crank, so it's going to always work, has a little flashlight, some USB plugs, all of that. Having a way to engage with those systems, I think, is good. If you want to kick it up the next level, some sort of walkie-talkie, especially a GMSR, I think is how you say it. I don't think I'm dyslexic, but like sometimes I get those mixed up. Radio. This is 5-watt walkie-talkie radio. I've used these a ton. These are awesome because I get access to those emergency channels and NOAA weather and can hear that, but now I have the ability to communicate with other 5-watt bandwidth radios. And if I have two, obviously, I can leave one at home with my family. I can go, hey, I'm going to go down the street to the supermarket, whatever, see if we got our cash, let's see if they have food, or whatever, and we're going to use that so you can have a next level of communication. Then if you want to kick it up to 11, I highly recommend considering something like the ZOLEO satellite communicator. I've had these for years. This thing is awesome. I've taken on backcountry adventures, all the different things, but what's awesome and we don't think about, especially in urban environments, is that this can communicate with satellites directly. It does not require those cell towers to get a signal out. So that's why no one could call in those scenarios, is the cell towers didn't have power. This will communicate directly with a satellite, and if there's anyone else on Earth, I can potentially text those people. If they have power, I can hit the SOS button and communicate with first responders worldwide. If there was an emergency and get help, I can check in, let friends and family members know I'm okay or where my location is. There's a lot of value in having a satellite communicator like this when cell towers go down, but satellites are still working and there is power in other parts either of the country or the world. So that is something heavily to consider. They're awesome sponsors here at the channel, and been really pleased with the results that I've had over the years with that particular device. So along with that, now that we've kind of checked the box with communication, we got to look at medical. Having an IFAK, non-negotiable. Having something that will have the ability to stop major arterial bleeds, so some sort of coagulant, tourniquet, being able to disinfect, and some gauze, as well as painkillers and antihistamines in case there was swelling or allergic reaction. Those things are essential. Know how to use all of those and the consequences and positives of each device. So having some basic medical training is essential. And having that, along with any sort of medications you may be on, especially if it is a daily pill. This is just my personal preference, but I would highly recommend at least a week's worth of medication in here, if not a month, especially if it's a daily dose you've got to take. How terrible would that be if you're having withdrawals or some sort of issues that are just based off a pill that if you just had and it's 3 days before you get home, you know, that no-brainer to me. Okay, as we go on here, we got our toolkit. It's good to have a couple of little bags in here to help kind of organize everything. And in that toolkit, we got a few different things. Self-defense. If you can carry a firearm, best case scenario. If you cannot, then some form of pepper spray is my choice. And you should probably have both. If you can have both, do it. Because non-lethal options are always better than lethal if you have a choice. And you think that that will be the deterrent. So that if something goes sideways, there's a riot, there's something crazy going on, you're getting, people are trying to take your supplies because it's starting to get pretty hairy out there. This gives you a chance to defend yourself and get out of that particular situation. So pepper spray, you could look into bear spray. Obviously know all your rules, regulations, different things like that. You could look at tasers, you could look at batons, all things. Just make sure you know what's legal, what's not in your area, so you're not carrying that in your vehicle or on your person. You're busted when there's not an emergency. So, yeah, self-defense, ideal. Now, along with those tools, let's look here. Paracord, essential. I like this Atwater little attachment here because I can not only wrap my paracord, cut the paracord, but it also has housing for a Bic lighter. Now, I am not really concerned about firecraft because I live in an urban environment and many people do. Now, you may need to augment this system if you live in a very rural area and focus more on firecraft with some different tools and options. As long as I have a Bic lighter, and this guy has tape everywhere you need to have tape. So duct tape every way, Bic lighter, paracord. I have another Bic lighter in here with more tape wrapped around it, good to go. And then I have a credit card, old gift card wrapped in some duct tape. Got to have it, right? Then, of course, even if you're in an urban environment, you may be in an unfamiliar area, having a compass, so you know north, south, east, west, emergency whistle, and mirror. Just no-brainers, simple, cheap, and easy to have. Along with that, you got to have a multi-tool. I prefer, in my kits, I put the Super Tool 300 by Leatherman. This thing is bomb-proof, super tough, reliable. Got a little bit kit with it. There ain't a scenario I can't address with this tool. Now, if you want to maybe go in a different direction and this just cost-effective, a lot of these Chinese clones are pretty epic. Beeberry is kind of my favorite. I've tested many of them, very high-performing, and if you're building out maybe multiple kits, and then over time, I would rather trust a Leatherman, but if you have to, that it's better to have one of those Chinese knockoffs than to have none. Along with that, a fixed blade. You got to have a fixed blade. I have the T5 from Lion Steel, something that you can stab, pry, cut, break glass, do whatever you need to. Compact but very durable and has a great edge to boot. This is just my preference. Good Kydex sheath, all that now. But if you're on a tight budget again, you can just snap up a Mora. Better to have a Mora than not. And then as we move along here, kind of coming to the end, illumination and recharging power ability, right? You've got to illuminate. What happens if this happens at night or whatever scenario? Well, I have a headlamp. Hands-free illumination is always preferred so you can work with your hands. But so many flashlights and headlamps now have integrated battery banks that you can't remove. So if that dies and there's a power outage, once it's dead, it's dead. So to have something that can also run on AA's or AAA's is ideal. And so these Petzls can do just that. It has a power bank, but it will also take AAA batteries, which are easy to find. Most people have them in their homes, and I can use that. And I have a secondary backup. This is a Rovivon E7 that has a battery bank, but if it dies, it can run on the same AAA battery. So I just make sure I have all of those integrated in. And then finally, backup battery power. So I could charge up a phone. I have a little dongle right here with multiple plugs, not just for my phone, but to be able to recharge my headlamps, radios, the ZOLEO, you know, like all that stuff. I can recharge any of those things with this little dongle, and I can get at least 1.5 charges on my phone with this little power bank. That's me and my mileage, guys. In a situation like this, these are the gear and supply items that I would look into considering and checking out. I'll have a link to all this stuff to the affiliate networks I partner with, you know, down below, so you can check those out if you're interested and you want to maybe add a particular item or start from scratch. I have some, you know, options for you guys to kind of pursue. So appreciate you. Leave comments below, leave questions, your own favorite gear items that you use in these type of systems. Appreciate you guys. For those of you in Spain and Portugal, hope you guys are well and that you have recovered from that very scary scenario. Till next time, check out the other videos, subscribe, and always remember to stay equipped, stay prepared, and I'll see you out there.